This is Seahawks Stories, 50th Season Edition, presented by Emerald City Athletics.
Time once again for Seahawks Stories, the 50th Season Edition, along with Jim Zorn. I'm Steve Raible. Thanks so much for joining us and listening in today. Z-Man, always a pleasure. We get to jump in the Wayback Machine and start talking about things that happened back when you and I played, which was the leather helmet days, no face masks, those kinds of things. Maybe not quite that far back.
Yeah, not that far back.
But we have discussed the great teams of the 20th century for the Seahawks, the 2005 Super Bowl team that you coached on with Mike Holmgren. And there were so many things. There's so many things to like about the way the franchise grew from 76 all the way through to present day. One of the things that you have to do as you're growing a franchise is you're also dealing with a whole bunch of other teams and a league that sort of makes the rules.
That's right.
And let's go back to about 1989. I had been retired for, 6-7 years by that point.
That was Steve's last year.
89, Steve Larson. That's right.
That was
he
his
came in
last
with
year.
us our first year in 76. All he did was have a Hall of Fame career. I remember the touchdown catch in Cincinnati. I remember him giving his jersey to the late Pete Gross, one of my predecessors as the play-by-play guy for this franchise.
Did you have double duty at that time? Were you the anchor?
I was anchoring some. I was not the main news anchor at that point. But
you were always...
92 is when I took that chair over at TV.
Okay.
But I was the sports director, and I was anchoring news at noon, and then doing football on the side too.
All
so I was staying busy. Yeah. And so there were times when you have to deal not only with the opposition, but you have to deal with sometimes what seemed like kind of crazy stuff coming out of New York City, out of the headquarters of the National Football League. And one of those things was in 1989, a rule against excessive noise that the fans would make in the Kingdome. I can't even imagine anybody these days thinking that you could have too much noise and that you'd try to take that home field advantage away from a team. But that's exactly what the league did. What do you remember about those times?
At that time, if that was an issue coming into the National Football League at that time, that was 89. I was coaching at the college level.
Right.
And we didn't necessarily have the noise issue at that level. But I can tell you a story earlier than that because I was a player and you were too. You played in this game in 76, maybe our first year or second year. I can't remember which one. But we were in Milwaukee. And in Milwaukee, the Green Bay Packers played half their games in Milwaukee.
Imagine?
Yeah, I was a part of that in 1985. But that's for another day.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think we're in Milwaukee, and there is a noise rule. Did you know that? You didn't know this. So there's a noise rule, and so the rule was that when you went up to the line of scrimmage, if the fans of the opposing team were so loud and you couldn't hear, the rule was I had to put my hands up and I had to turn around to see Mr. Official. And if my hands were up, he knew I couldn't hear. So I went out, and the crowd was just rabid. And so, Jimmy, I can't hear. Here's Bob Newton, and I don't even think our center could hear me. That's how loud it was. And so I stepped back. I did the rule. I turned around to Mr. Official, and they blow the play dead. And Mr. Official, stops the clock, and he has me step back. We get back in the huddle. We go back up, and we do it again, and it's even louder.
Of course.
Right? I lift my hands up. I turn around, and now we call timeout. So I go to the sideline, and Jack Patera and Howard Mudd are right there. And he said, Jimmy, don't snap the ball. I don't want you to snap the ball one time. Do not snap the ball. And Howard Mudd goes, Zorn, you don't snap the ball. Did you hear what he said? Do not snap the ball. What they were trying to do was make a statement that you can't really enforce this rule. So here's network television, right? I kid you not. Rabes, at least 20 minutes we stopped the game because I would go, and I had the Mr. Official going, come on. Just try to snap the ball, will you?
At this point, there were no penalties involved.
There were no penalties. Yeah. There was a penalty involved, but they didn't dish anything out. I can't imagine them giving the opposing team a 5-yard penalty for excessive crowd noise. But this was the rule.
Yeah.
We stopped the game. We stopped network television, and finally, the Mr. Official kind of talked me into it. He goes, just try to get the ball snapped. But every time I'd walk up, our fans would do the same thing,
sure,
as loud as you possibly can be, right? So I get up to the line of scrimmage, and I said, well, we got to get the game going, because, you get tired or you get tight or whatever. You kind of lose that rhythm of the game. I snap the ball, we run a run play, and now the crowd is out of it, right? So the next play, we run the series. I come off the sideline. Howard Mudd was livid. What the, what? He did everything he could. He resisted grabbing me or hitting me or whatever, And he goes, we told you not to snap the ball. But they were trying to prove a point that here's an NFL rule that you really can't enforce.
Yeah. And
he didn't care how many times I went up to the line of scrimmage. He just wanted to stop the game, and it already was hopeless.
Yeah.
And maybe it wasn't for 20 minutes, but I think it was for a long time like that. And Howard never forgot that. And anytime Howard and I would get together, talk football, he'd remind me of that. We told you not to snap the ball. He just couldn't get it out of his mind. And that actually, that whole series of, whatever that was, started him talking about the silent count.
Right.
And that's what happened. Howard Mudd, I would say I could put his autograph on creating the silent count. And a lot of coaches thought different things. Hey, I'm going to tap the center, put my hands underneath. He's going to head bob. Some guys do sideways. Some guys have now with the shotgun, the guard looks back at the QB.
Yeah.
He taps the center bobs and snaps it. So there's all kinds of ways to do the silent count.
Right.
But I think it happened out of this rule, and maybe in '89 it even got emphasized again. You can't enforce that rule,
right.
Nor should you. That's why the fans are so good. You just know you better do a silent count. And I loved the seasons when I was here, because they would always have up on the scoreboard the statistic of how many yards or how many times the crowd got cited for excessive, procedure penalties against the opponent. And that was a feather in their cap. That was a badge of honor, 114 times we got you to jump off sides.
Right.
I think that's pretty awesome.
Well, I didn't remember that it happened in Milwaukee. I remember our game back there back in the old days, and it amazed me at the time, and really is amazing to me now when you think about, Lambeau Field as one of the cathedrals of the National Football League. That in those days they couldn't get enough people there, so they also would play half the season in Milwaukee, because that's where more of the fans were in the Milwaukee area. Now you can't even get close to getting a ticket to Lambeau Field for anything.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, it really came to a head in '89, and in large measure to the Seahawks in the Kingdome. It was so loud in there. Well, we remember from our days, and the fans, as I remember, were pretty knowledgeable at the time. They knew when we had the ball, okay, bring the level down. But when the other guys had the ball, you're going to make a lot of noise.
And as a quarterback, if they were too loud and our guys couldn't hear, I could say, hey, quiet, a little more quiet. I don't ever hear any quarterback doing that these days to their own home crowd,
right?
Because of the silent count.
Yeah,
they lift their foot, the guy taps, here we go, a clap or whatever, and you're off to the races. Yeah.
So I remember specifically the game I remember, and of course the whole rule deal. There were teams. There were a fair number of owners. I think you're right. Coaches probably realized this is not going to be something that we're going to be able to implement. It's just going to get in the way of everything. But there were owners who thought that this was a rule that should be had. We're not going to let the fans take over a game. which is exactly what you're hoping the fans do in your stadium.
That's right.
Make a lot of noise. And oftentimes it was owners of teams that didn't have either a great fan base or a very loud fan base. And we had both of those things here in Seattle. But I remember by this time I was in the booth with Pete Gross doing the color analyst job. And I remember playing against the Raiders, and Mark Wilson was the quarterback. And at that time, you could penalize the home team. And Wilson just kept stepping back away from the center, saying, "I can't hear. They can't hear me."
I remember that.
And
I remember that.
It just became, I mean, it sounded like jet engines in there. It was so loud. And it just got louder, as you said, every single time. And I think that was one of the things that eventually, at the end of the season, the kind of the rule just sort of went away. I think it was one of those test things. We're going to try it. I don't remember if there were any penalties meted out, to be honest with you. But I just remember it was the dumbest darn thing to try to get fans to be quiet. I mean, how in the heck are you going to make that work?
In training camp, all around the league, every single year, officials go to every single training camp, and they cite the new rules, like the new kickoff in today's game, or how they're going to emphasize pass interference and what they're ruling on hitting the quarterback, and they have video proving or trying to show their deal. Well, I remember the mechanics that I had to do because the officials came around that year and talked about crowd noise. But this was in the 70s. This was in the mid to late 70s, and so they had that rule. And I know that the good coaches like a Howard Mudd or even Jack Patera would say, "Bullhorns on this. When this happens, I know what we're going to do." Because they right away they knew how they wanted me to react, and I'm sure in the Raiders they were smart as well. Hey, Mark, just back up and let's see how long we can delay a game. But I think the owners also got a little word from the network going, you can't do that. Because games are already 3 hours. Now we're going to go 3 hours and a half. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to lose our fan base on television.
Right, and there's always the old saw about there's one great way to take care of that. Go make a play, and that'll quiet them down. That'll take the fans out of the game.
Get the ball snapped and make a play.
And so I think that from the player's perspective and maybe even most of the coaches' perspective, I think that was kind of what the thinking was. Let's just go out there and make a play, and then we'll get them to shut up. Well, in some cases, yes. But, now you have the decibel levels up on the big screen.
Louder.
Exactly.
And when you're backed up and you're in that end zone and on either side and you think you're going to try to get a playoff, you better go silent count because there's no way in our stadium in Lumen Field that you're going to get a snap off if you try to voice it.
Well, you remember in the Super Bowl of 2013, the Broncos start backed up near their own goal line, and Peyton Manning doesn't use the silent count the first snap, and the center never hears it, snaps it over his head, goes into the end zone. We recover for a safety, and that's what started the onslaught. And NFL Films has Peyton on the sidelines talking with his offensive line. He said, "You couldn't hear me, could you?" And it was like being at Lumen Field, except we're at MetLife Stadium in Flushing, New York, for crying out loud. It was cool. So it does show that it doesn't matter necessarily where you are. It's who you have surrounding you, who supports you. And you can tell when teams are having a tough go of it, their fans are not, terribly happy. And that's to be expected. That's what you get for the price. You paying for the ticket. And if you're not happy with the performance, you can let your hometown team know just as well. But
I do think that every single team that comes into Lumen Field with the 12s to face, you're facing the team, but you're also facing the 12s. I think it does make a difference because that's one of the things the coaching staff is going to prepare all week for is a silent count, and then you have noise at practice. You have maybe music when you're on if you're the visiting team, you have music and stuff when you're on defense because although your team's going to be loud, but when you put your offense on the field, you're going to have crowd noise, and that's what we do That's what Mike McDonald does here during practice.
Yeah. Let me ask you a quick question about that as a coach. So you're going to go to the silent count. Remember back in the day, the whole idea was get off on the ball. Get off on the snap count. Bang, get off the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
Hut. You're off.
And everybody coming off at the same time.
Exactly. On a silent count, is there necessarily a bit of a delay there for everybody? I mean, guys are looking in, obviously, from the far outside. The wide receivers are looking at the ball. They can't hear anything. The interior linemen, or at least the tackles and tight ends, may have trouble. Is there a fear sometimes that using the silent count, you're not getting off the ball the way you should?
You get off at the same time, but it is just a tick later than you normally would if you're hearing the rhythm of a cadence.
Right.
Because a cadence usually is rhythmic. Set, red 60, red 60, hut. You pause, or the way that quarterbacks do it today, red 60, hut. And you slur things together.
Yeah.
So there's a rhythm to that, and guys can get ready, boom, and they can get off.
Right.
Silent count, you wait and you kind of do it, and you're looking for ball movement, but when the guy touches, and usually if it was me, I'd be looking for the guard's helmet to go back straight, and I would count. I would say, because I don't have to see the ball, because I have to watch this defensive end who's faster than I am, even though I'm Walter Jones and I can block you with one arm, I still have to get off, right? And so if I saw the guard tap the center and then have the guard and his helmet coming back straight, I'd be thinking rhythm, because everything's going to be a rhythm, and I'd get off hoping all my other guys would get off. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's so I would agree with you. They get off at the same time, but it's just a little bit late.
Right. And I would venture to say now, with a few exceptions, some of those athletes on the edges and even some of the athletes down in the front 3 or 4 on defense are, with some exceptions from back in our day, but they are superior athletes now. And those guys, like you say, they're like get off like a rocket on the movement of the first sign that the ball is about to.
What did you do? Did you hear me? Because I tried to be as loud as I could be so that the people up in the 300 level could hear me.
I remember the first year as wide receivers, we took a 3-point stance.
Yeah.
Like almost a track stance.
That's right.
So you're looking in at the ball, but you're also listening, because I'm trying to turn my head and look up to see what's going to happen next. And I remember playing in D.C. against the then Redskins, Pat Fisher, the smallest guy on the field, a cornerback. I think he might be in the Hall of Fame. If not, he should be. 5'10" or something like that, 5'9", 170 pounds, dripping wet. I got my hand on the ground, first snap from scrimmage, I'm looking in. I look up, and ball is snapped. As soon as I look up, he's right here in my grill, and he hits me right in the mouth with a forearm. And I mean, I just go down to one knee. And if it was, I don't remember if it was a pass route.
It probably was.
You lost me on that side. But, and I got up, and he just kind of smirked. He was an old veteran then, and he smirked and said, "Welcome to the NFL, Rook." And that was the lesson learned. After that, after the first year, we went from a stand-up. I never understood why we didn't do that to begin with.
No.
Because now you're in a much better position to be able to see and to hear. But I always say it on the broadcast today, a wide receiver should never be offsides, because you're at the very least looking at the ball.
Yeah. And you can't hear, so you got to see the ball movement, right?
Right, exactly. And yes, you're anticipating, but it's a lot better to be a half a beat late than to get your team a 5-yard penalty in almost any situation. So that's noise, and that's one way of looking back at history 12s and saying you have been absolutely unbelievable all these years, going back to when they rattled the ceiling tiles out of the Kingdome back in the 80s and 90s, and for us in the 70s, and continue that on today. And it's for all of us old football players, or for those of us who are the fans and the broadcasters who are listening, it's kind of music to our ears, isn't it, knowing that you got those guys behind you?
Right. It's deafening. I can hear you saying that. Yeah. I can't hear can't hear anything, right?
That's right.
You got headphones on, but you can
still
know it's super loud.
It's so much fun. It's the best. It's the best. As are you, my friend, as we continue this walk down memory lane. 50 seasons of Seahawks football, the noise and what it's meant to the Seahawks from all the way back in the day, through the days that they tried to ban it, for heaven's sakes, to today when there's no place like Lumen Field on a Sunday or a Monday or a Thursday. Jim, pleasure. We'll talk again.
All right, Raves.
We will see you folks as well.